Well, hi there. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here today to give you a little talk on what is awakening and also what's the difference between awakening and being woke. Okay, because they're two very, very different things, guys. So I guess the best way to go about it is to tell you about my own experience so far. So my awakening experience probably started, I think, about 2010, maybe a little bit before. So I'm sure many of you have experienced seeing numbers. What comes up lately is 1111 and 2222 or 222 or 33 and 333, these kind of numbers coming up. They're all prime numbers, and they all have quite deep meanings. So these numbers can be looked up online. There's a wonderful resource called Sacred Scribes, Angel Numbers. I started seeing 1111 probably back in about 2010, 2009, when I lived in Canada. And I had no idea what it was about. I just knew that there was some kind of synchronicity going on, and that I felt that in some kind of way that Spirit was trying to get me to notice something, and that to try and get me on some kind of path. So these numbers, seeing these numbers in succession and what have you on anywhere, it could have been microwaves, on license plates, on signs, on the clock, that kind of thing going on. And so what happened a couple of years later is, I think maybe in about 2012, 13, something like that, I started going to Greece, to an island called Mykonos, which is quite a party island. But I found when I was there that my channel, my gift for channeling was quite open. And I was very aware of Spirit being around me, not just Spirit, but people that had passed over. And what happened was I started dreaming about one of the islands, which is an archaeological site. It's called Delos. And islands like Mykonos and Santorini, and there's a whole bunch of islands called the Kyklades Islands, and they are around Delos. And Delos is the birthplace of Apollo, the god Apollo, the sun god. And this is the island where Hercules had his cave, and also Hera was, I think, Apollo's sister, or was it his wife? Anyway, these beings were on this island and would travel around to the other islands and what have you. For example, Apollo once rode 2 dolphin like skis and went to the island of Delphi and spoke to the oracles there. So I kept dreaming about this going to the island and going up Mount Apollo, which is on the island. It's not a huge mountain, it's a small mountain. You can get up it in, within an hour, but I kept dreaming that I was on the top of this island and Apollo appeared to me. And when I went to Mykonos, I had the opportunity, there were synchronicities and things lined up that I met a tour guide, lovely lady, and she loved my story so much that she said she was going to take me on a private tour and not charge me, and take me to the island. And so this got organized and I went to the island of Delos, and when I stepped onto it, I realized that I'd lived there in a past life. And I was able to give her a tour of the town area and tell her, this was the fishery, this was the butcher, this was the trader here. There was an overlay of all of this action happening. Even though there were tourists on the island, I had the secondary overlay of everything that was going on. And from the moment I set foot onto the island, I felt this. And we did this. I took her on the tour, and she was quite surprised at how much I knew, because I knew very little about the island, but I was connected to Source at the time. And so I said, okay, I need to go up the mountain. And there were people up there. There were people walking about. It was fairly busy. And I was quite fit at the time, and I plan on getting that fit again. And what I did was I ran to the top of the the mountain. I ran up to the top. I felt like, okay, this is the island of the gods, and the Greeks are incredibly fit and sporty. So I ran up there, and I was panting when I got to the top, and there were two people on the top of the mountain. And I asked them to take a photo of me up there, and then they went down, and lo and behold, there I was, from the image in my dreams, that I was standing on this mountain at the top by myself. And all of a sudden there was this feeling came over me, and an incredible brightness from the sun. It just engulfed me. I was completely surrounded by this divine light. And what I could see peripherally were these two big feet, and I believe this was Hera standing next to me like a giant, and Apollo was this bright light from the sun, and they opened up my heart in a way that, and my mind in a way that is very difficult to describe. So that was the first part of my awakening experience, and it brought me to my knees, and it brought me to tears. And I made my way down the mountain, and I found the tour guide, Danai, and told her of my experience, and we embraced at the bottom of the mountain. And then I went back to the island of Mykonos, and I felt incredibly in tune. I felt incredibly aligned and set to my path, and I just kept attracting lovely people and having these great conversations about why we are here on earth, and all of these things opening up. And of course, this is all just God in a different form, right? Coming through to me as Apollo, coming through to me in as different people, and my connection to spirit on the other side just got more stronger. So after leaving Mykonos, and it was an incredibly emotional trip for me, it really opened me up, I went back to Canada, to Toronto, and it was so strange. I guess you would call it a tower moment in the with the cards. And I went into this dark pit inside of myself. I went from being surrounded by this light and completely absorbed by it, to feeling this darkness, this shadow within myself. And I said to my partner at the time, who wanted to go away for the weekend, I said, you've got to leave me here. I need to go into solitude, which is what I did for the weekend. I just went into solitude, and I basically just laid on the floor for 2 days and cried until I had this self-realization about, I went through all of these processes because in the week before, I'd gotten so triggered by ridiculous things, stuff on Facebook and what have you. And we're talking, this is years ago, so well over 10 years ago. And really was struggling in my heart. My body felt heavy. I was having headaches, and I just knew that I had to go into solitude and try and deal with these emotions that were coming up, which was, inevitably when your light comes up, if you haven't dealt with your shadow, then your shadow is going to come up to meet it as well. So, and vice versa. So I really had to do the shadow work. And this was really my first experience of working with the shadow. And laying there, going through forgiving people, asking the universe or God for forgiveness and, for the mistakes that I had made, I ended up realizing that I had to forgive myself for a whole bunch of stuff. And in order for me to start moving on in my spiritual path. And once I had that epiphany, that aha kind of moment, things got into balance for me again, and I was able to go out the door, which was the Sunday. So I literally laid on the floor, not eating anything for 2 days. That's what happened. And then, so then life carried on, and it was quite some years, and I went through a divorce and what have you, and I needed to start getting things into balance in my life. And I think what happens, especially when we get a bit older, we have to go through these experience people and experience things that maybe we haven't, tied up the knots on in past lives or in this life, where you're making the same kind of mistakes. And I guess the kind of mistakes I was making was, too many times, instead of trusting my intuition, I was allowing people to manipulate me into situations, allowing people to manipulate me, and becoming a victim. And that was my next kind of big, we have to go through these very tough experiences as humans. Part of our existence here, yes, it's about love, it's about learning, but as human beings, we don't really learn lessons unless we suffer. And I really had to go through some suffering to get to realize certain things, and in order for me to stop making the same mistakes again, particularly with people, and I think one of my biggest lessons was dealing with narcissists and the way you can be manipulated and what have you, and learning how to deal with betrayal. And I think this was an ongoing theme over many lifetimes for me. So, and we all have our own personal kind of stuff that we've got to deal with. It could be anything, that you keep, life is like a spiral, and we keep coming back to these lessons in our lives, and from our past lives as well. And if we don't learn these things, then these lessons come back in another form, or with different people, but it's the same lesson over and over. And until we learn it, until we break ourselves free from that, we will continue to have to deal with these kind of things in our lives. So, awakening is a big part of it, is dealing with your own stuff, taking responsibility for your own actions, for your thoughts, and living with that and learning how to move forward, and also learning that not everything has closure. Sometimes closure is about just realizing that nothing else is going to happen, and it's about you getting yourself, your own heart, into alignment so you can move forward. It's about self-realization, awakening. So as I've moved forward, and awakening is an experience that lasts for years. It will probably carry on through your whole lifetime. You know, there is always something to learn, no matter how divine and how close your connection is to God or to Spirit. If you think you've stopped learning and that you're just a teacher, things will happen in your life to show you that you're still also a student. Okay, so I've come to a point now in my life, I'm now 50, that I realize that the lessons are not going to stop, and that if we move backwards, then there will be something that's going to get us to trip up and, you know, get us to realize, you know, we build these like I said before in the tarot, we build these towers in our lives, and there comes a point where that's not serving anymore, and we go through these experiences that are really hard. I had one experience where literally part of my house burnt down, a third of my house burnt down. I had a whole bunch of things happening one after another. And the big lesson there is learning to, when it comes to things that you can't change, that you really have to surrender, and you have to have faith in those darkest times. That is where your faith needs to be strongest. This is about truly being awake and realizing who you are and how things work. It's not just, you know, we all made a choice, guys, to come to Earth School. Our souls, before they came back, or before they came here, if it's your first time, made a choice to come and learn. Okay, and to try and to come and make a difference. We all made the choice, our souls, before we became physical forms here in this reality. So, you know, with that, we like I said, we really need to take responsibility for ourselves, our own actions. We don't move forward into awakening if we go through life blaming other people. We just become stuck in the same kind of patterns. So yeah, this is part of the awakening experience, and through that, our connection to the divine becomes a lot more solid, and we realize that everything that's going on around us is all a control system. You know, God didn't want us to be fighting here on earth. God didn't want us to be separated by religion. God didn't want us to live in separation. Okay, we are all a part of each other, and we are all a part of God, and God is a part of us. And that is the thing that makes you awake. That is the thing. It doesn't make you better than anybody else. It just means that you've become a little bit different, and it's your duty to waken other people up. That is the big thing. It's not about being an influencer. It's not about being this or that. It's not about, you know, there's this whole latest thing of everybody thinks we're in the Matrix or whatever. Well, maybe we are. But at the end of the day, you ain't getting out of Earth School alive. Okay? We are here for the duration that we're here, and we're here to learn. And the sooner you learn that is being awake. Okay, so now there's this other term, being woke, that's being tossed around on the American news stations particularly, and in the American press. We need to realize that, you know, all of these things are just sort of distractions and what have you, and they're all just part of the control mechanism to keep people sleeping, to keep us as sheep. Okay, so this woke term It's got nothing to do with your spirituality. It's got absolutely nothing to do with being awakened and having that channel open with your creator, and having that channel open with everybody, and realizing that we are all energy. Even this table I'm sat next to, the wall behind me, it's all energy in different forms, and we are all part of it. We're all just part of this energy, and our minds and our bodies are maybe I can describe it like we are kind of like the synapses in God's mind. We are all connected. And this whole thing of being woke and what have you, it's just another distraction. They're taking a word that's a bit like, woke and awake are as words, they're very similar, but it's now got a very different meaning that they're trying to pass off as the same, and it's really not. Just because people realize, okay, well, governments have been controlling us and they're putting these kind of things in our food and what have you. But that's still about blaming everybody, right? You're still in this construct. You may be thinking, oh, I've escaped the matrix because I realize there's this chemical in my cornflakes, or there's this thing going on with this government, or they're trying to get DNA from aliens in Saudi Arabia or something like that. Like there's all sorts of things going around. I'm not saying any of it's not true, but these are still all distractions that make people sort of bring up fears, and it's still another control mechanism. It's not being escaped from the matrix at all. In fact, you're just embedding yourself even more. So guys, I hope this talk sort of explains a little bit about what it is to go through the awakening process. It's different for everybody, but that is my truth there. That's been my experience so far. And what it's done, especially recently, those of you that have been following the channel, you know I've taken a bit of a break. And I needed to do that. I needed to go through a tower moment, which was horrible. But I needed to go through some experiences where I could then go on to another experience where I could let go of the old armor I've been carrying. And it's really put me in tune with my creator. It's put me in tune with the universe. I feel like I've stepped it up in a way that my heart just has a lot more peace in it. And I feel like I can move forward to do better work. And that's what I feel that I'm here for, is just to do better work with people, to work with people and to get people to recognize their spirit and just how strong we are as individuals, but how much stronger we are if we unite, if we get rid of our labels, all of this non-binary and homosexual and I'm this and I'm that, or I'm straight, or I'm black, I'm white, I'm green, I'm purple. All of these things, God doesn't want us having these things. God wants us to not have labels. God wants us to recognize each other and recognize the differences and the beauty in each other without labeling. Okay? So, about moving forward, really, we are all connected, and the more we realize that, and also that if we see something in somebody else and it's bugging us, we really need to look inside our own hearts. Why is that bugging me? What's going on with me that I need to change so that doesn't bug me? And guys, we need to stop judging each other. I get appalled sometimes. I mean, I try and keep my social media quite minimal now because I really dislike how people will put something out there, or the way TV media, produces and stuff, and that people are judging each other, and we really shouldn't be like that, guys. We shouldn't be judging each other. Okay. So I hope you found this talk interesting. You guys take care of yourselves. I have brought this with the highest light. So love and light to you guys, and God bless you. Take care. Goodbye.